Hey guys, welcome to the video series on GCP for data engineers. Hope you guys are doing well and staying safe. Today we're going to understand array and struct in Google BigQuery. You might be wondering why we are jumping directly to such complex data structure instead of looking into the other data types such as string, numeric, boolean, etc. So those are pretty standard data types. So if you have some experience in SQL, it won't be a big challenge or it won't be a major change for you within BigQuery. On other hand, if a good understanding of array and struct is extremely powerful when analyzing the big and complex data because we can query faster and more efficiently with pre-joined tables from object-based schemas such as JSON and Avro with array and structure. So without further ado, let's start. So in today's tutorial, we are covering why do we need to know about array and structure. What is an array, how it works, like how we can work with them, and same what is struct, how we work with them, and how we combine them in array to create nested records. Okay, so the first topic is like why do we need to know about array and struct in BigQuery? If you look at the picture, it have like three different schemas of a restaurant table, its location, and about its cuisine. And the schema first, or the option one, is like it's a normalization. So normalization is a basic data warehouse concept which basically help us to avoid storing redundant data. So that's like help in reducing the storage cost. But at the like it impacts the query performance. Like, so imagine like you're joining multiple tables and or various tables, like a lot of tables you are joining, then your query performance won't be that much. So if we are normalizing our data, basically we store like we having like we are store like we are saving some storage, but we are sacrificing on our query performance. And the second option is the denormalization, which is like kind of opposite of normalization, in which we store redundant data, so query performance will be higher. And you can look into the diagram, like like all the records are stored in one table and it has redundant data in it. So there won't be, if you run a query, there won't be no joins and all, so query will be much faster. But there will be storage cost will be higher because we are storing redundant data there. So in BigQuery, BigQuery provide us the best of both world, which can be which is represented in the option 3, using the repeated or arrays. So if you look at this, it has like 3 rows, and in the last row they have arrays. We're going to talk about in more details, but if you look at this, it's like this is 3 rows. And by using the repeated mode, like we kind of reduced our storage too. So basically we have like better query performance as all data is in a single table, so there is no expensive joins which we can get from denormalization too. And even we are doing something, if you perform like something like a distinct or all those, in that case also, like it don't like the iteration over number of rows will be less. So in denormalization, that will be like the iteration will be on 6 rows, while in the repeated, or like in BigQuery repeated mode, like it will be only on 3. And last but not least, so name and location don't have to store redundantly. So here, like this name and location in the second option is stored redundantly, but in BigQuery it's not stored redundantly. It's only stored one time, and this is the an array associated with it. Okay, hope it makes sense like why we are using array. And structs will come eventually, but like this is basically it gives us gives us the best of both world, like where like you store, like you saving on storage, and also like you don't have to perform various joins which impacts your performance, or like query performance and all those kind of things. A array, if you basically have any programming understanding, you must have heard this word array data structure a lot of time. So it's nothing different here. It's an ordered list containing elements of same data types or same built-in data type. So in SQL, it's an array. It could be an array of integers, or it could be an array of floats, strings, those kind of things. But in BigQuery, like for example, if you're coming from Java world, like there are arrays of arrays, but you can have an array of an array, but in BigQuery we can't have an array of an array. And from data perspective, the examples could be an array could be like a group of countries. So like a G7 countries, that could be an array. Like a person speaking multiple languages, so that could be an array. Like a person, let's say if somebody speaks 3 languages, that could be part of an array. Somebody speaks 2, so in that way. And demo. Okay, so 1 second, let me jump to the portal. So this is the BigQuery UI. If you haven't, if you're not very familiar with it, like please check out the first video. I'll provide the link in the description, and you can go from there. But the people who already have an idea, so basically what we are doing, we are creating an array, and we are going with the easiest way to create an array. There are like other options too, but we won't explore them in this video. So I'll start with the easiest way to create an array using a square brackets. So I have a script already ready. I'm going to put the link of this script in the description too, so you guys can replicate it on your end. So I'll start with this. So let me copy this. Or before like I jump there, I just want to explain like what we are doing. So we are creating a table with the name of restaurant cuisines, and it have data which is like a Cafe Pacific will as a name, North York as a location, and this is basically cuisine array is in our array here. So let's like it's very straightforward, and then we are like union with like other select statement which have pretty much similar kind of data, and cuisine array here, and then same thing. So we're doing like we're repeating it like 4 times. So let me create this very quickly. If I go here, new compose query, so I already created, this is my project, this is my data set, so I already created the data set. Let me copy paste my query. And if you remember from last time, like how we call a table, or like put that in our from statement, it's always like dataset dot whatever is the table name you want to put. Okay, if we run this, okay, cool, it's done. So now you can see in our, like there was nothing there, but now we have a restaurant cuisine table here, and it have, if we 1 second go to the table, if we go to the table, so a couple of things I want to, so if you look into the schema, so name is string, mode is nullable, location is string, nullable, and cuisine array is a string, but the mode is repeated. And that's how we actually created using the square brackets, but that's how you identified an array in your table. Like whatever field have repeated in it, like mode is repeated, that's an array. Okay, and if you look at your data, so we have only 4 records, and you can see if we expand this, like we can see it. And this is what we were looking into that diagram, why we need an array. So if we go back, look at this. So this is like 1 record, and this is connected with it. Go back here. So here, and we can expand this. So basically what's happening here, the values within the bracket which we have here. So we'll look at only the first one for understanding perspective. So the values within this bracket forms one array. Okay, and BigQuery has stored them in those repeated fields associated with a single row. So you can see this. Basically, that array is stored here, like it's associated with this single row, basically. Okay, now we look into couple of array functions. So the two things are measured like from your schema. Like if you go to the table, I just want to repeat. So the mode, when the mode is repeated, it means that's an array, and whatever type it is, like that type of array. So for example, here it is string, but it could be an integer, float, various kind of things. And in the data, as I mentioned, like BigQuery has stored that repeated field, or has stored that array associated within one single row. Okay, and now we will look very quickly into couple of its functions. The first one is I won't say function. The unrest is it's an operator, and it's very handy if you want to unpack your array. So the typical use case would be like if you want to export this to your MS Excel or Google Sheets, because let me copy this first, Control C, and go back. So if you look at your data, if you export this like in in an Excel, like you have to like drag this like 4 times. Like pretty much you have to put it in your denormalized form because of the formatting what Excel have. Okay, so if we have to do something like that, we can unpack our array. So here, if you look at this, we selecting the name and location which we have, then cuisine, and this cuisine is an aliases of unrest cuisine here. Okay, so this is an aliases of this, and this unnest, just keep in mind like it's always come in either from or where statement. You can't put it in your select statement. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, 1 second, this is completed. And if we look at the results, 1 second, let me expand this. So you can see now, like for example, spice of the street, like location, and this is repeated now, like it's in the denormalized form now. So basically, as I was mentioning, like if we have to unpack our array, so this is like a very handy operator, unnest. The next one is the typical, like we can look into the length of the array, that's through array length. So let me do this very quickly. If you look at the query, so we selecting the name. So name is the like name of the restaurant. Then we just doing the array length as number of labels. And if you see, like we don't have to do group by or anything, because BigQuery already know that, like it's associated, because for BigQuery it's associated with single row. Okay, if we run this, that's done too. And yeah, you can see that like there are only 4 records, and number of labels, or I give it like number of labels, like whatever, like number of cuisines or type of cuisines they have, like all 3 have, like all the restaurants have only 3. And if you look at our data, yeah, I put it accidentally 3 in all of them: Italian pizza, fast food, Indian casual. Yeah, so that's correct. Now let's jump to Struct. Okay, so what is Struct? So on contrast to array, basically Struct is something where we can store multiple data sets in a Struct, even an array. And one the classic example of Struct is an address field. So an address is basically like it can have like different fields associated with it, like a street number, city, state, province, postal code, those kind of things, or even country. So those can be stored in Struct format. And easiest way to understand a struct, I'll say, like, let's create it. There are a couple of ways to do it. I'm going to show you both. Like one, I'm going to show you only two ways. So one is using the struct operators, and the other one is like we can define it while or we can, like, yeah, we can define it while we are defining the schema of the table, and it's come with the record, like its data type is record. Okay, let's quickly jump here. Okay, so if you look at this query here, also we basically doing nothing, just creating a table. The table name is struct restaurant cuisine, and if you look at here, so we have restaurant name, location, we keep that pretty standard what we have in the last array table too, but then we using the struct operator to create an R struct name as basic info. So from here to here is a part of the struct operator. And in this struct operator, if you look, it consists an array, it consists in a string, and it consists of boolean. So which I was mentioning, like like in contrast to array, a struct can have multiple data types stored within it, and it can have an array stored within it too. Okay, so as I was mentioning, like we use struct operator to create it, and this is how you do it. Like you type struct, open parenthesis, enter the fields which you want, close it, and name it whatever you want to name it. Here we are naming it a basic information. So basically what we are adding, we already, like we adding a cuisine array, what kind of cuisine type, then price range, that's also a string, then a boolean, like whether it has a delivery or not. So let me very quickly run this. Okay. Okay, let me, one second, sorry, let me this. So control A, run. And now you can see we have another table here. And if we go and look at the schema of this table, so you see the type is record here. Okay, so there is one thing you keep in your mind is like, if the mode is repeated, that's an array. So array is aka repeated field, and when the type is record, it represents a structure, a struct. So aka nested field. Okay, so struct, nested field, and record is the same thing. So sometimes people use it like interchangeably, but most of the time people say it's nested, like in industry. But like if they use record data type or struct or nested, they mean the same thing. And for array, it's an array, and mode is repeated. So you need to keep this thing in your mind, and like you won't get confused anymore. So if you expand this, so you can see basic info, and it have all those things. And in cuisine array, you can see the mode is repeated, and the others are like string and boolean as we discussed. Okay, now let's look at the data. And if you expand this, so the data is a bit different, and in here, because we have an array, so we can expand this too. So this is like a we have like a nested record, which have an array associated with it. Okay, and how we access these fields basically, so for example, let's say if we have to access price range, okay, so for that we just need to use the dot notation. Okay, let me do something different here. Yeah, let me try to run this. I'm trying something. So what we doing, like name, location, same thing. Then we need a price range, so it will be using the dot notation. So basic info was the name of the struct, dot price range is one of its elements. So that's how you fetch that. And then we are using unnest for our cuisine. So if we run this and we have where clause, like where we in the where clause, like we just having getting only those restaurants which have like delivery as an option and also casual in their array. So hopefully we have something. Yeah, so spice on the streets in North or in New York, filter out of that. So now we know how to access an element within a struct. So we access an element using a dot notation within it. Okay, and now the last piece I want to talk about is creating nested records. Okay, or basically we can say array of structure, an array of structure. So if let me, oh, before that, like I want to show you like how we can define like a structure when we are defining the schema. So let's go on our data set, create a new table. That's an empty table. I'll give it like test name. Okay, and in schema, I'm not going to save it, but let's say address, sorry. And here the type we choose record, and after that, like you can add like, for example, street, whatever you want in the street. Then we can add state, those kind of information, and that's how like this is another other way of creating these structures. Okay, so using struct operator, and like we can create it here too. Okay, yes, quit. And now look at the last piece, which is array of structures. So what we are doing here, copy this, let me go this and explain this to you. So basically what we are creating here, like we're creating a new table named restaurant. So the first field is reason, and after that, if you look at this, we have an array sign started and it goes till end as a restaurant. Okay, and same thing here, union started and it goes till end as a restaurant. Okay, it's saying some syntax error. Let me think about it. Let me try. Just give me 1 second. Syntax expected end. 1 second. Did I miss something? Let me copy paste again. Okay, so probably in copy pasting I missed something. Let's run this. And you can see new restaurant table is, so now let's go and check it its schema. So if we go to its schema, like there is like one thing which we have to, like we can see right away. So the type is record, which means it's a struct, and mode is repeated. So it means this restaurant field is an array of struct. Hope it making sense to you. So this is like one thing I was mentioning is like that you need to keep in mind, like if it's the mode is repeated, it means an array, or yeah, aka repeated field. And if the type is record, it means it's a struct, or we call it like nested field. So basically it's the nested like it's the nested field of, it's an array of structs. If you think from that, like this is an array of structs. So if we go into data and expand this, so the first row is in first struct, and this is the second second array of struct. So this is the first row. So from here to here, this box, what the box you are seeing here, this is the first array of the struct, and this is the second array of the struct. And this is basically we maintaining nested records, which we discussed in like in the beginning. Like it eliminate the need for data redundancy, creation of additional tables, or using expensive joins. Like for BigQuery, this is one table, and this is like one very it's a way of storing data in a way that you don't have to in a single table, that you don't have to join it other tables or subqueries and all those. So in BigQuery, that's how like you create nested records, or we call it like array, or we can call it like array of structs. Like array of struct make more sense. Nested records is like more a bit like a non-technical terms, but that's how it is. So wrapping up with this, like basically in BigQuery, this was the main thing. Like you might have heard a lot of time, like nested records and all those. So like in a nutshell, is it's an array of struct. And what is in struct, which is like a collection of multiple data types, and it can have an array within it. And what is an array? Array is a like collection of elements of the same data types, and these two things are the key: type and mode. Okay, thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for upcoming videos, and